Sterling Short Stories. Step into the story.
The dark web. Enter the void. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a year ago in my cramped bedroom, walls plastered with band posters and half-finished sketches. My best friend, Jonah, had come over for one of our usual late-night gaming sessions. Chips, energy drinks, and endless banter. We were bored, so Jonah suggested we try something he'd stumbled upon in the shadowy corners of the internet. It was called The Void, ironically, a bizarre name for a dark web game. We'd seen weirder stuff online, but that night, everything went horribly wrong. I tore my room apart that night, searching for any sign of Jonah. I called the cops, the hospital, even went door to door in our building, but it was as if he'd vanished from reality itself. I couldn't let it go. Jonah was my best friend, practically a brother. I poured every waking hour into researching the void. I scoured the dark web, posted on hacking forums, even reached out to self-proclaimed demonologists, anyone who might have a clue. Most leads were nonsense, troll posts, conspiracy theories, or half-baked rumors that never panned out. Still, I kept digging. Weeks turned into months, and the guilt gnawed at me. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Jonah calling my name, echoing in some endless void. Then, 2 weeks ago, I found something. A string of code hidden in an obscure dark web chat. In bold letters it said, "The void is real. Enter if you dare." My heart raced. I knew this was it. The more I uncovered, the more convinced I became that the chat I found was real. It was not just a piece of malicious software. It held a portal, a gateway to some twisted digital underworld. People vanished playing, and they were rumored to be trapped in a void, a realm of corrupted data and malevolent entities. I set up an old laptop, air-gapped from my regular system, using every paranoid measure I'd learned from hacking forums. I loaded the code I'd found into a hidden command window. The screen flickered, and the same distorted text from a year ago appeared. "Enter the void. Play if you dare." A chill crawled up my spine, but I forced myself to click. A web of code streamed across the display, too fast to read. My laptop's fan roared, and the screen pulsed with sickly yellow lights. That familiar static whisper crept through my ears. My hands trembled on the keyboard, but I pressed on. A single dialogue box popped up. It was narration to my life. It read, "In a desperate quest to find his missing best friend Jonah, Liam enters a twisted digital realm known as the Void, confronting both monstrous entities and his own fears as he battles to escape and save his friend from a dark fate." I stared at it, my heartbeat hammering. This was it, the point of no return. If the rumors were true, this was where Jonah might be, where I'd lose myself forever. I reached for the keyboard. My finger hovered, hesitating. Picture Jonah's grin, the way he'd laugh until he snorted, the countless times he'd had my back. My chest tightened, and without another thought, I clicked yes. The screen erupted with color, swirling yellow and black, as though I was staring into a bottomless well. A piercing hum filled my ears. The air in my room vibrated, pressing in on all sides. Then everything lurched. My vision blurred, my stomach twisted like I was dropping from a great height. For a few seconds, I lost all sense of up or down. When the world came back into focus, I was no longer in my bedroom. I stood on an endless plain of dark, tar-like material. Above me, instead of a sky, there was shifting code, luminous and constant flux, forming shapes that disappeared as quickly as they formed. A faint, pulsing glow on the horizon offered a path of light in this bleak, impossible landscape. I don't know how I knew it was the right way, but I knew. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to move forward, even though the atmosphere felt suffocating, as if it were pushing back against my every step. Somewhere in the distance, I heard Jonah's voice, broken, static-laced, but unmistakable. "Liam," he said. I hadn't heard his voice in so long. My heart clenched. He sounded weak, terrified. I sprinted across the dark surface, shouting his name, each cry echoing back at me in warbled distortion. Flickers of static appeared in the sky, forming what looked like clouds before they flickered out. At the periphery of my vision, shadowy creatures slithered and jerked, their eyes aglow with eerie yellow light. They didn't attack. They just watched me and whispered, but their words were inaudible to my ears. I tried not to think about what they might be, but I knew. They had also been victims to its game. I only cared about finding Jonah. Eventually, I spotted him. He was slumped against a jagged pillar of obsidian-like rock, head bowed. My throat tightened as I sprinted to his side. I dropped to my knees, hand on his shoulders. His skin was cold, his breathing shallow. I'm here. We're getting out of this place. He lifted his eyes, and a spark of recognition flickered. Liam! You came! Before I could respond, something colossal shifted in the darkness. A shape loomed behind Jonah, emerging from the shadows like a nightmare given form. The creature. The one I seen and felt in my head that night in my room. It was there. But this time it was growing larger. It was pulling in the shadows of which I could only assume were every poor soul that played its game. Me and Jonah watched in pure dread. It finally stopped and stood tall over us. It had had no definitive features except for 2 pinpoints of yellow light where eyes should be. Shadowy limbs seemed to ripple and extend from its body, as though it were made of living tar. The air around it crackled with static energy. A low hiss rattled through the void, scraping at my nerves. The creature's gaze pinned me in place, and I felt a bone-deep dread, as though it could see every fear I'd ever had. Jonah coughed, trying to push himself upright. His voice rasped, "We have to run." But I couldn't move, paralyzed by the creature's presence. Then, Jonah's hand gripped mine, weak but insistent. I tore my gaze from the monster and pulled Jonah to his feet. Somewhere far behind us, a thunderous crack echoed, and the ground shook. The void itself felt like it was fraying at the edges, shards of code raining down from the sky. A sense of urgency fueled my actions. I slid an arm around Jonah's waist, half carrying him forward. The creature let out a shriek, a sound that sent knives of pain through my ears. Tendrils of black static lashed out, slicing the air. We ducked, nearly collapsing under their force, but I kept going. Each step felt like wading through quicksand. The entire dimension seemed determined to swallow us. Jonah's legs gave out, and he sank to his knees. "I can't," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "It won't. Let me go. Once the void has you, you can't leave. Every time someone plays its game, they weaken the barrier between life and whatever this is. He wants out." "No way," I said, my throat raw with panic. "I'm not losing you again." With a surge of desperate strength, I hauled Jonah up. The creature roared behind us, its tendrils smashing the ground, sending fractures of yellow code zigzagging in every direction. I stumbled onward, searching for any sign of escape. The air tore at my lungs, my muscles screaming. But I refused to let go of Jonah. If the void thought it could take my best friend again, it would have to take me too. As the void began to collapse, the darkness warped around us. And I was sure that whatever that thing wasn't far behind us. I had no idea if we were running toward salvation or deeper into the void's clutches. But I knew this. I wasn't giving up. Because Jonah was more than just a friend. He was like a brother. And I was going to get us home no matter what. If there was any shred of hope we could sever the game's hold and escape this nightmare, I would seize it, even if it meant never returning home. And then, in the distance, a gateway flickered. Maybe it was just another illusion. Either way, I didn't have a choice. Holding Jonah tight, I lunged toward it with every last bit of courage I had left. It went dark for a moment. My vision was blurry, my heart was pounding. But I looked up to a familiar scene. It was my room. Jonah lay motionless on my floor. I rushed to him, shaking him, calling his name. "Jonah, wake up! Answer me!" But he didn't move. Tears began to form in my eyes. But just then his nose twitched and his eyebrows raised. I froze in place. Jonah gasped and sat up, his face full of life and glee. He He was back and I couldn't be happier. It took a while for things to return to normal. Jonah told everybody he was kidnapped and fought a bunch of thugs to escape. Well, I guess anything was better than the true story. I uninstall the Void from my computer, and me and Jonah still play video games together. We just stay far away from the dark web. I'm glad Jonah's back. But you know, even still, sometimes when I'm at home on my computer, I can't help but think something still feels a little strange. Like and subscribe to Sterling Short Stories on YouTube, but only if you dare.
Sterling Short Stories. Step into the story.